are listening to She Has No Limits, the podcast.
Once you're shown, you can't unsee. Time is short, you best believe in yourself. You're a formidable force driving, diving lessons in the deep end.
She Has No Limits is a movement and community for professional women to come together, be inspired and learn how to design the limitless careers that we deserve.
Today on She Has No Limits, the podcast, we are joined by Ellie Edwards-Scott. Ellie has enjoyed a hugely successful career as a leader in the media industry. Her career began over 20 years ago in regional press, progressing to national press and then moving into digital media, firstly in online recruitment and then moving into ad tech, advertising technology. As Managing Director of AdLink Media, Ellie directed the launch of the company's first programmatic offering, and in 2011, Ellie was approached by WPP to launch Quizma, GroupM's leading performance marketing business in the UK. In 2015, Ellie moved into consulting, first working with Dentsu Aegis and subsequently with a host of advertising, technology and telecom companies, helping each one to maximise their digital media revenue potential. And in 2018, Ellie co-founded with Lisa Menaldo the Advisory Collective, helping companies launch into new markets, create disruption and innovation and accelerate their business growth. Today, Ellie is not only an ambassador for the online industry, but also a champion for inclusivity, sitting on the AdTech London Advisory Board and as co-founder of Digital Leading Ladies, which comprises 200 plus of the most senior and entrepreneurial women in the digital advertising industry, opening doors for females within the industry and providing speakers for events and contributors to industry opinion pieces. And Ellie is currently launching a group for Black women in media, aiming to increase visibility and opportunities within the sector. Ellie is also non-exec director of Look Ahead Housing and Care Limited, a trustee for DigiLearning, which is a charity that teaches digital skills to young adults from diverse socio-economic backgrounds. And she's an advisor to Coco Magazines, the UK's first Black children's magazines that help to educate and inform children about Black culture. Ellie lives in Kent with her husband and 2 children. Let's meet her. Ellie, thank you for joining us here today. It's lovely to see you, or to hear you.
Thank you.
So, Ellie, you embarked upon a career in traditional media, as we now know it to be.
Yes.
And of course, since then, you've gone on to have this wonderful career as a pioneer in digital media. So tell us about that technological transition for you, and what was it about this nascent, exciting, pioneering digital industry that attracted you?
I think you've used some of the words there, Amanda. I think the fact that it was pioneering, the fact that it was a little bit different. I was in regional press for a few years and then I went to B2C, and I was in working for V&U, which so many people in media have been through V&U's doors or a similar type of business, and it was amazing. It was a heyday of magazines and consumer press. I had a company credit card with no limit, and we used to go out and party and have a fabulous time. But then I heard about digital, and I'd always been interested in what's new, what's next. And there's an opportunity to work for a Guardian Media Group backed online recruitment site. So although I have taken risk in my career, I try and take calculated risk, and it was backed by a big brand, but a kind of new entity, new pioneer. So I thought, yeah, let's take the opportunity and go and join that. And at the time, I remember some of my colleagues saying, "What digital? It will never take off," type thing, and thought I was mad to be leaving. But I just saw the opportunity, and it just something new, something different, and yeah, I just grasped it really.
What year are we in here, Ellie?
Oh gosh, we are. I went into digital about 16 years ago. Yeah, 15, 16 years ago. So a real early adopter, to be honest.
Yeah.
It was online. It was online recruitment first, and then we kind of went into that whole digital sphere. So yeah, I've been interested in tools and tech for quite some time, and I suppose as well, my husband's in IT, and I've been with him for over 20 years. So digital's always been part of our life and always been something that we do. So yeah, it wasn't a leap into the unknown. It was something that I felt comfortable with.
Although it's interesting, isn't it? Because 15, 16 years ago, we'd have no idea how the world would look today. None whatsoever.
Yeah.
So in terms of what you were doing in that pioneering move, really very exciting.
Yeah, definitely very exciting. I think it was seeing the similarities though with how digital works or how digital companies work versus traditional, because at the end of the day, media is media, and yes, it's consumed differently, but actually there are so many traits, one in terms of consumers and also in terms of a business. So yes, it was different and new and exciting, but actually you relied on some of the tips and tricks that you'd been taught in previous roles to actually bring them along and bring that discipline along to digital, which was really interesting.
Wonderful. Let's talk about being a woman in media and advertising, and let's ask you about being a woman of colour. I used to work in your industry, so I know what it used to be like. And often the media and advertising industry has been accused as being not particularly progressive when it comes to gender and ethnicity, diversity. What's been your experience over the years, Ellie?
My experience has been, I use the word interesting, that's probably my buzzword. My experience has been varied. So, I've worked in big corporate companies where the senior roles were filled by men. Diversity was, if you weren't from the southeast, that was as diverse as your colleagues got. If you had a northern in the room, it's like blimey. So to be a woman of colour in the room, yes, I would be one of the few. Over the years, and particularly in ad tech, because my roots and within digital has been very much ad tech focused. So when you look at ad tech, it has changed, and it is changing slowly in terms of senior women, but the stalwarts are, the white males, and in terms of who are starting up companies, who selling the companies, who hold a senior position at the companies, it is a very much everybody looks the same and has that same upbringing. Now, for me personally, I think you can either look at a situation like that as okay, that means I can never break through or I can never get anywhere, or actually celebrate where you are different and actually bringing a different viewpoint to the table, bringing a different experience to the table. It doesn't mean that every time I walk into a room I shout out, oh, I'm a woman, oh, I'm a black woman, it doesn't matter. People can see it's obvious, but actually how can you contribute? How can the way that you look at things, because we do naturally look at things differently, how can you utilise that? Sorry, how can you utilise that? How can you show your expertise? How can you make sure that actually it's known that a lot of the time you are better than the people in the room? I will always make sure that I am more prepared, because why not, go that extra mile. I would also make sure that I speak up. I'm not a very shy person anyway, don't know if that's come across yet, but I had no issue with speaking up in the room, as long as I kind of knew what I was talking about. So I'd make sure I was prepped, so I know what I was talking about. Things are changing in our industry, but they are changing slowly. I mean, we still, even getting women on stage is still something that we're having to champion in 2021, because, there are manels. Seeing other diversity on stage in terms of colour and or ethnicity isn't as prevalent as it should be. And, you know, some conference organisers or some people say, oh, because there's not enough talent there. That's absolute rubbish. There is. It's just how do you unearth and give people opportunities. I've been fortunate, I say, but I've worked to be fortunate in the fact that conference organisers and people will come to me for my opinion or ask me to speak, but then I see it's my duty to bring others in, and that's what I do. So it's unearthing those opportunities and making sure that your wider network has that. 2020 has been such a period of change, emotion for everybody. COVID, you know, Black Lives Matter came to the forefront, although it's nothing new for any black person in the, you know, UK, US, Europe. But it came to the forefront for a lot of people and a lot of organisations. And that's a good thing in terms of surfacing that, you know what, things do need to change, and actually we all need to look around whichever room we're in, and if everybody looks the same as us, how are we opening the doors and how are we helping other people to get into our industry and get those opportunities? You know, it exists at all levels and with all colours and cultures, but I think as an industry which is predominantly male or predominantly white, we need to then say, right, how do we bring others into this industry and showcase opportunity and talent.
I was wondering, Ellie, as you're talking, it's quite exhausting, isn't it, this constant push to raise people's sights and horizons and aspirations to invest in, let's use the wider term, diversity. How do you keep going? What is it about you that keeps you going?
You're right, it is exhausting, and how do I keep going? It is exhausting, and some of the conversations last year especially, because people would come to me as the person that they knew that they could speak to. It's like, oh, which black person do we know that we could ask a question to? Oh, Ellie, right, okay, Ellie, can we ask you this? So that was a little bit frustrating and exhausting. However, I think for me, inclusivity has always been key for me. So we're going to talk about, digital leading ladies and other things that I do. I've always wanted to help other people, whether that was at school because I was, quite popular and had lots of friends, and you notice somebody who maybe was sitting on the outside of the group. How do you bring that person in? That's just been me. That's my personality. So if I can open any doors for anybody, if I can open people's eyes to the fact that, wow, this person of this ethnicity or with this disability or isn't that going to be that glaringly different from you, so actually it's okay to speak to them, it's okay to include them, then I'll happily do that. And I think the way that I've done that is not just within my professional day-to-day life, but also in terms of the non-exec work that I do. But I don't go around every day having to tell everyone that I'm a black woman. It's obvious. I know that, you know that. It's who I am. But there's also lots of other parts of who I am, it's just me.
You've mentioned digital leading ladies, and we obviously wanted to talk to you about them. They are a wonderful force for good and for inclusivity in the digital industry. You're one of the co-founders. How big is the group now, Ellie?
So the UK arm is about 260 ladies, and then we've got an international arm, which is mainly US, which is probably about 60. So yeah, it's growing. It's a force to be reckoned with, as you know, Amanda. But it's also such a force for good. So yeah, love it. Love being part of it. But we had another group previous to DLL called SWAT. I don't know if you know about SWAT. It was supporting women as technologists, and so some of the co-founders of DLL were ex-SWAT co-founders. So yeah, this is probably a better name for a group, and I think we've done a lot more with it. We've taken it a bit further than we did with SWAT. Yeah.
Ellie, you mentioned manels. I know what that phrase or that word means, and I know that it's a key focus of the Digital Leading Ladies in terms of bringing about a more inclusive industry. Tell us a bit more about manels.
Yeah, so manels is really, the work that we've been doing about around manels is basically to ensure that we're getting those voices that haven't been heard onto stage. So getting different speakers, getting different opinions, and often what you'll find is that conference organisers will just go to those same people. They've got a roster of people who speak well, look great on stage and have great opinions. But actually, how do we get other voices out there? How do we get maybe some not as senior people onto stage to get different viewpoints? And we've just been doing a lot of work around that.
So with manels, I absolutely understand the need to get the right voices on the stage, and I understand there is a need to be more diverse. But I look at it and wonder how many people stop themselves from putting themselves forward. So the other side of the coin, because they don't have the confidence or the belief that their voice actually matters.
That's actually a really good point. And I have been lucky enough to be in a lot of panels. I've moderated quite a few and also sat on, on the actual panel side of the fence. And when people come to me or organisers come to me and say, right, okay, do you know any females who specialise in this? And I can give them some names and say, yeah, this person's absolute expert, this person that's absolute expert in their field. Oftentimes women will say, oh, I'm not really comfortable speaking, or actually, I don't think I know enough. And it's a thing that we have as women. I don't know if going to these gender stereotypes, but sometimes you have to because it's true. I've seen senior, confident women not want to get on stage, and don't get me wrong, it is intimidating. Even doing this podcast is intimidating, but for me it's like feel the fear and do it anyway. I quite like and thrive off that adrenaline rush. It's like, actually, I'm pushing myself out of my comfort zone, and I like doing that as a person because I learn and I grow. But some women don't want to be on stage, or they go on stage and they apologise for not knowing as much as somebody else, and you think, but you do. Like, a man would never get on stage and say, oh, sorry, I'm not sure if my answer's okay. Even if his answer's crap, he's going to be saying it like it's the best thing. He'll be sitting on stage like he's an expert, or sitting at home, as we all are, like he's an expert. And I just see it. I mean, it's interesting because Blue Stripe and Amy Keane, they doing some great work. Practice makes unperfect, which is helping women to find their voice and actually training women for public speaking. And I've done a couple of their sessions sitting with some women on my training course and basically, taking them through what makes a good panellist. And it's so interesting. And when we kind of do a kind of mock panel session, and the prep that women go into, I think, for panels is just astonishing. I've done other panels where you'll get a guy just turn up on the day and, okay, go on then, shoot. It's such a difference in confidence and skill. But you're right, Catherine, we can't put all the blame on conference organisers to not find people. It's also on the woman or the person to actually put yourself forward, and that's quite important as well.
And so I guess that's one challenge area, if you like, that women face, or that we face as an industry. What other challenges do you hear the Digital Leading Ladies talking? What are the themes that come out of that community? The
ones that I can talk about. I think one of the themes, and it's actually quite interesting because I don't know if you've seen it this morning, Amanda, probably not because you've been busy, but we're just actually releasing a survey into how the Digital Leading Ladies have been coping and feeling during COVID. And I think it's really going to be interesting. It's an anonymous survey, but actually we're going to see if we can shape an article out of the findings and publish that within the press, because as women, I mean, it's been categorised in trade press, national press, the extra and additional pressure that women in particular have been in or under during COVID. And it's not saying, for any men out there saying, well, we've felt it too. I'm not saying that men haven't, but women, it's been documented, women have felt even more pressure. And I think that's been a topic that surfaced a lot within the DLL group, and how employers are helping or aren't helping or being accommodating for their employees during this time. We're lucky, if you call it that, in terms of we've got our own business, so we can maybe juggle things a little bit better or organise our diaries in a way that suits us a bit more flexibility than those within organisations. But that's been a real issue. Interestingly enough as well, something that does surface is around women helping women. And there's a lot of positive stories that have come out of it. And as a group, we're incredibly impactful, and, people can ask for help and a variety of different things, and people jump to help where they can. But also it can be, some women in the group have had, like maybe mid-level women, have had issues with their female bosses or female counterparts. And that's really interesting as well, because let's be honest here, ladies, we don't want to just say that, when you get a group of women together, it's all rosy and we all kind of braid each other's hair and everyone gets on and it's fabulous. It's not. And it is also how DLL can help women in the workplace navigate some of those tricky relationships. And the tricky relationships aren't always with men. It can be tricky workplace relationships with women. So I think that's something that's come out of the group, and people not being afraid to ask for help and not being afraid to be vulnerable. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah. Let's stick with the topic of women for a little bit longer, if that's okay, Ellie. You're in a business partnership with another woman.
I am.
So tell us about that particularly important business relationship. How did it come about? How did you know it could work? How have you proven it does work?
So I've known Lisa, we met when we were both in Group M, so probably about 10 years, maybe just under 10 years. We both set up businesses within Group M, so we kind of met there and formed a bond there, I'd say. And then I started consulting about 5.5 years ago. So after I left Group M, did a stint at Dentsu and then branched out on my own, and would often rant, scream, also tell Lisa the joys, but a lot of her ranting and screaming about life as a consultant and life as a sole business person and what it's like and the challenges, but also could see that there's opportunity, but how do you actually do it all when it's just you? And then Lisa, about just over 3 years ago, was in a role, a senior role, and actually was just like, I want something else, I want something different. So we spoke about doing something together and set up the Advisory Collective. In terms of how we make the partnership work, I think honesty and trust is key, because if you're going to go into a partnership, any partnership, that is really, really important. We communicate. We've always had very good communication anyway between us, but now having worked remotely for a year, apart from a brief stint when everything opened up and we ran to Soho as often as we could, we speak. I spoke to her about 3 times already this morning. We communicate a lot, and we need to do that because what we want to make sure is we're not duplicating everything in the business. So we are taking care of different things. We have very similar skill sets in terms of that very commercial focus, but with a technical background. But actually, there are strengths and weaknesses on both sides that we're able to be honest about, and actually, babe, you're better at this. Can you pick up this? Or can you just double check what I've done? So being vulnerable, being able to communicate, being able to trust your business partner is really important. And knowing the strengths and weaknesses piece is really key, because if everyone pretends that you're great at everything all of the time, you're going to miss certain things, and actually work out what your partner or your team can do better than you, hand that across, and vice versa. I think that's really key.
It's so liberating as well, isn't it? When the other person knows what your weaknesses are.
Exactly.
And they can just pick that up for you, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, great, you can take care of that and I'll go and do this. So yeah, and that's just worked with us, you know. It's just worked, and you're still refining, you're still learning. I think both of us as well, we don't say, okay, we've nailed it. It's still like, okay, how can we build and grow? What can we do? Shall we do this? Shall we do that? So we're both willing to grow and learn, because that's quite important as well.
So how have the pair of you got over any tricky moments? Because again, you know, it's great, isn't it, when it all rocks and it works together well and we're all on the same page. But there are times, aren't there, where in business partnerships there's a tension between each other. How have you two sort of worked your way through those scenarios?
Communication, definitely, because you can't let something fester, because that's just the worst. But I think generally, I mean, I'm like that generally as a person as well, and I think so's Lee. She's not, you can't sulk at anything. If someone pisses you off, just say it. Actually, you've pissed me off a bit because I don't really like that. And you're like, oh, right, sorry, didn't realise. Communication and wine really has kind of got us that's just got us through most things. So yes, I think it's important to not brush anything under the carpet, because it, you know, then it can build and grow and fester. So if there is a problem, yeah, it might be a little bit uncomfortable. We maybe have to say, hands up, sorry, I shouldn't have done that, or didn't realise it was going to have this effect. And then, yeah, if you can drink through it, that always helps.
So you're at that stage, Ellie, in your career whereby you have your day job, if I can say that, and then you've created this wonderful portfolio of roles around or in addition to that. So you have Digital Leading Ladies, which we've talked about, and you're a trustee as well, and a non-exec. Come on, get it all out. Busy woman.
Yeah, I'm a trustee for DigiLearning, which is a UK digital skills charity. I'm a non-exec for Look Ahead Care and Support. We care for 4 vulnerable groups: mental health, homelessness, young carers and learning disabilities. And then I'm also an advisor for Coco magazines, which recently launched, I say recently, last year, which is the UK's first Black children's magazine. So yeah, I do that in my spare time.
Wow. And you mentioned earlier in relation to you and Lisa that you're both dedicated to learning and growing. I'm guessing that with each trustee and non-advisory role, it gives you exposure to a slightly different industry, different ways of working, different people. Tell us a bit more about what you have acquired through those roles.
Yeah, definitely. So my non-exec role, so Look Ahead, I've care and support. I've been a non-exec for about just over 2 years, 2.5 years, and that was my first foray into this portfolio career, if you like. What I found is, yes, I'm a co-founder of a business with Lisa, but I used to sit on a board. So when I was in Group M, I sat on a board. When I was in Dentsu, I sat on a board. And I missed those kind of wider, if you like, business conversations, very strategic conversations, just looking at challenges outside your bubble and how they affect and impact, because, we are a team of 2 and you just don't get that. So I started thinking about non-exec roles, and when I was looking for non-exec roles, for me, if I'm doing something, I've got to be passionate about it. I've always been passionate about homelessness and mental health in particular. Mental health, within our family, there's people that have had or have mental health issues, and mental health has been such a taboo subject. People don't want to talk about it. So how do you help people that have those issues? And homelessness, I mean, on my commute, when I used to commute in, I would get off at Charing Cross Station, and for my walk up into Soho, probably on an average day, past 10 to 12 homeless people a day. It just it gets to you, and like, how can I help? I can't, even if I gave every person, I can't give every person £1 every day, and what will that pound even do? So how do you do something tangible? So when I was approached for the non-exec role at Look Ahead, it just seemed to tick so many boxes in terms of having, well, firstly, I was very different, or I am very different to other people on the board because of my experience. I'm not from the housing sector or from the kind of NHS, but they wanted somebody with a bit of more of a commercial focus and also with digital skills that could help them as an organisation. And for me, I wanted to give my time and effort to an organisation that was actually doing something tangible. And I mean, when we could do site visits, obviously I can't at the moment because of COVID, but I've been to so many of our properties, and I've been to so many of our homes and met customers that, you know, whether they have been homeless or whether they've got mental health issues, and our customers are absolutely amazing. The work that is done by our staff is just, it really does move you so much. And I can actually see us making a tangible difference as we are looking at, you know, acquiring new properties and building new services, and actually looking at some of the complex needs complex needs customers that we work with. So that's just a real passion of mine. So yeah, that was exciting to do because of getting that, you know, sitting on a non-exec board, and it's different from sitting on a commercial board. You know, being a non-exec, I had to learn. It took me about a year to learn what you can and can't do, because you often, you know, you want to jump in and go, oh, like, we can do that, but actually you're a step removed, but you help that with that strategic vision, which is great, and that strategic direction. So that's been really exciting. And then my trustee role, so I've known Lisa, as you have, Amanda, I've known Lisa for years. And she's just fabulous, and what she's been doing with DigiLearning, I've always kind of watched from the sidelines and helped out where I could. And then she spoke to me last year about being a trustee and said, look, can you come on in a more formal capacity to help us? And they do amazing work, Lisa and Sarah. It's helping underprivileged young people, so 16 to 24, from different socio-economic backgrounds, helping them and arming them with digital skills, which will then help pave the way for a better future for them. So yeah, really passionate about that. And then Coco magazines. Selena, who's a publisher who I met years ago when we both worked at WPP, she came to me last year with an idea of, I want to launch a Black children's magazine. Why? Because there's none out there, and you think, gosh, in 2020, really? And her daughter was going through issues with just self-identification and just, you know, being proud of who she was, because there was nothing out there that looked like her. And when you look further into that, you're like, actually, yeah, what impact does this have on children who you go into a shop, all the magazines of blonde-haired, blue-eyed children on the cover, and if you're not blonde-haired, blue-eyed, then how does that make you feel about yourself? So that's been really interesting in terms of opening up working in the world of editorial and magazines. And it's funny how things come full circle, because obviously studying journalism and now involved in magazines, but to, you know, showcasing the audience to advertisers and opening up people's minds about what Black culture is, and educating. So that's been exciting too.
Gosh, you have so much going on there. So much, Ellie. And the other thing that we haven't discussed is that you are also a mum.
Yes.
So how are you
I'm a mum and a
fitting all of
wife,
this?
yeah. Yeah, I'm a mum and a wife as well. Just add that in. Yes. So my daughter is 11 next Tuesday, which she just can't wait. She's super excited. Although she's not very excited about obviously having a lockdown birthday. Yeah, my daughter's 11 and my son's 14. So yeah, it's a balance.
So what is the secret then? Yeah, what is the secret of that balance? Because I mean, that's the reality, isn't it? Of working mums, working parents. How do we balance it all? Because, you know, I'm asking you directly, how do you do this?
So, you know what, balance is something that I have struggled with, because you give so much, and you both know as well as business owners and mums, you give so much of yourself, and actually when do you have time for you? So it is something that I've always struggled with anyway, but definitely last year I was just like, hang on a minute, I've got to change something because I'm going to burn out, and if I do, that doesn't help anybody. I have started. I've started walking more. I've started listening to audiobooks because I've always been really passionate about reading. And I'm like, actually, I don't have time to read, and which is ridiculous. How can you not have time to read? So actually, I walk a lot. When I do, I either do phone calls like to friends or listen to audiobooks. I started getting into audiobooks. Podcasts, I discovered the podcast about 2 years ago and really got into them, but I would do them on my commute in. So suddenly I was like, oh my God, I'm not commuting. I'm not listening to podcasts. So it's just making that time. So now I will generally on a Sunday just have a bit of time to myself and just, listen and to books or listen to a podcast, because for me, part of my relaxation is also about learning. I do like to, whether it's learning something new or listening to something new or discovering a new book, or that does quite relax me. So that's what I do. And cooking. I absolutely love cooking, and usually on a Saturday I'll be in the kitchen with a glass of wine. There's a bit of a theme here, isn't there? And cooking does really, really relax me. So I'll spend hours in the kitchen concocting different things, and that's relaxing to me.
Amazing. So let's try and bring it all together. You've got this portfolio of humanitarian work. I don't know how that word humanitarian sits with you, Ellie, but that's kind of how I would describe it. What's the future that you want to see? What are you working towards with this collection of effort?
I think that word, when you said humanitarian, I'm like, wow, because I don't think of it like that or think of myself like that. When I think about, what humanitarian is, that's something great. I don't think that's what I do or describe myself as that. But yes, I do care, and I am involved with a lot of projects and organisations that do care, provide that care and support. I think that's really important. What's next? What's next for it? I think, did you ask me what's next for it? I'm sorry, I'm so blown away by you saying humanitarian. I forgot the second part to your question.
Bless you. What's the future that you want to see? If all of your efforts come to fruition, what does that future look like?
What's the future that I want to see? I think it would be, if I had a magic wand, I think opportunity. So as I started by saying, I think one of the biggest gifts my mother gave me, and she was able to, luckily, was the gift of opportunity. So that's being exposed to certain things, being able to do certain things and go to certain places gives you that confidence to then go into a room, and people in that room may not all look like you, but you're not going to apologise for being in that room, because actually you've earned that right to be there. And that's because you have the opportunity to do things that are maybe a little bit different to the norm, to mix with people or from all different backgrounds. Opportunity is really key. I would hope that as we continue to kind of build and grow as an industry, and even just come out of COVID as people, there's more opportunities for different people, because I think, and that's something that Digital Leading Ladies are doing, that's something that Look Ahead are doing. It's basically giving people from all walks of life as much opportunity as possible, because when you have hope, when you have opportunity, then you have that self-belief, you can actually make a change. But so many children, so many who grow into adults just don't have that belief because they haven't had that opportunity. They haven't had people pushing them, encouraging them. So if I can help people by doing that, which then gives them that belief and opportunity, I think that's great. I mean, I say to my children all the time, I tell them all the time how lucky they are about the opportunities they have and things that they're exposed to, things that we just take for granted, but other people don't have. So, yeah, if I can keep in whichever way, whether it's, giving somebody an opportunity to do speak on stage or to be in a magazine or to connect somebody to somebody else, if I can give people opportunities, then I will be happy to do that. And I think that as an industry, as people, that's what we can do. We can all do that, can't we? We can all look at somebody and help somebody in some way. I think that's really, really key.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Now, Ellie, this series is all about self-awareness. And so finally, we are coming to the end of the podcast here. So what does Ellie Edwards-Scott now know about herself in 2021 she might not have known a year or two ago?
I know that being vulnerable isn't a sign of being weak. So I've always been somebody's like, yeah, I can do this, I can do that, I can do that, and running at 100 miles an hour. And actually, it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to say, you know what, last year, 2020 was bloody tough. And I wouldn't always be vulnerable because I think there's such a lot of pressure to say that everything's okay and everything's fine. And, actually, sometimes it's not. And it's not a sign of weakness to say that it's not. So I've definitely learnt to be more vulnerable, which is important. I've learnt to prioritise a lot better because there's a temptation to want to do everything and to be involved in everything, and you can't give your best if you can't, you haven't got time to dedicate to that thing or that purpose. So sometimes saying no to something is actually better for that cause or that purpose and for you, because if you can't do something properly or at least be committed to doing it, actually it's better not to do it. So I think that's really important. What else have I learnt? I think those are the two of the biggest two of the biggest lessons that I've learnt, and learnt that I think those are two of the biggest lessons I've learnt.
We've learnt a huge amount from you and felt very inspired. I feel very tingly. Thank you, Ellie.
Big thank you. Huge.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what were your reflections, Catherine, on Ellie?
Oh my goodness, where do we start? I absolutely loved her enthusiasm and passion and energy, and her love to learn. And I almost felt that was the energy or the power behind her almost feeling the fear and doing it anyway. This is an opportunity to learn and to stretch and to grow. So there's one reflection that really excited me and energised me. I felt that energy from her as she was chatting about all these things that she's done.
And she's very clear on the gifts that she's received from her mum. So self-belief, confidence, opportunity, that love of learning that you talk about. It really does make the difference, doesn't it? Our parental tapes.
Yeah. And then I think the other bit, when you look and you think, gosh, you're incredibly busy. You've got so much running your own business and your non-exec directs and everything else through to being a mum. But then I sat back and thought, but she's doing everything she loves. Everything she's doing, she's got an interest and a love and a passion in. And so does that then mean that we're not busy, we're fulfilled?
She
and then
wants
it's a
to
case
fit
of,
it all in.
Yeah. So again, I really reflected on that listening to somebody with all that energy and passion and interest in what she's doing is not a hardship. It's what's driving life and giving fulfillment.
And yet with vulnerability as well, struggling, talking about the struggle that she's had to find the right balance, being close to burnout, working out ways to help herself.
And being business partners as ourselves together, it was very nice to sort of hear the other take, isn't it, in terms of what makes a great relationship and what brings its strength, and that whole piece around honesty and trust, and that's the core of the relationship and the communication, and being very open with each other. So I thought that was a real privilege to sit and listen to in terms of what's the recipe of their success.
Women helping women, wanting one another to succeed. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
That's it for this episode. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much, listeners, for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed. Please send us your feedback. And if you'd like to have a sneaky peek as to who's coming up, then go to shehasnolimits.com and check out our podcast page.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you all again soon. Take care. All the best.